Well, we got some important information to cover today, folks. I want to bring this to you quick, fast, and in a hurry. No time to beat around the bush because this is very important and folks need to get this information. Urgent warning. Please pay attention. Public safety, national security concerns, World Health Organization, the WHO, Marburg, deadly virus and national security threats, 88% fatality rate, only 12% survival. I want you guys to take a look at this. Check this out.
In Equatorial Guinea, the first ever outbreak of Marburg virus disease has been reported after 9 people died in the country's Key Tem province. Apart from these deaths, 16 suspected cases with symptoms including fever, fatigue, and blood-stained vomit and diarrhea have been reported. According to the WHO, the disease is highly contagious and causes hemorrhagic fever. It begins abruptly with high fever, severe headache, and severe malaise. Of every 100 people who contract the virus, 88 are likely to die.
Now, folks, this information was actually shared with me by my friend Bupe in Zambia, Africa. This is hitting close to home, and I have a lot more information to bring to you about this, the likelihood of the potential threats of this new dangerous virus, dangerous outbreak, what we can do to prepare ourselves and protect ourselves, and most importantly, is this round 2 or is it round 2.2 or 3? I really can't keep up with the variants anymore. I'm not 100% sure, but we're going to get into this and we're going to discuss what this could possibly mean for everyone, not only in Africa and in these affected countries, but also around the world. Folks, please give this video a like, subscribe to the channel. Let's get right into it. 4 security threats for 2023. This is very important, everyone. I want you guys to pay close attention to this because according to securitymagazine.com, as the acute impacts of the pandemic subside in many countries, organizations worldwide are still set to encounter significant risks in 2023. And that's just this year alone, folks. This is not going to end in 2023. This is going to continue on. We need to continuously be managing, maintaining, and preparing for the current threats and future threats that will have impacts to our security, our livelihood, our survival. And according to the International SOS Risk Outlook 2023 report, the report is based on a survey of 1,218 senior risk professionals across 108 countries and provides a detailed view of some of the major risks that organizations must address in 2023. So you can see why this is of utmost importance. Number 1, the impact of geopolitical shifts. Now, it says here that the Russian invasion of Ukraine was the defining security issue of 2022, highlighting how geopolitics and the threat of interstate conflict are back on the corporate risk agenda, especially now that people are going back to work, or at least they're demanding folks to go back to work and the economy is opened back up again, so to speak. Now, geopolitical volatility will also spread beyond Russia and Ukraine in the next 12 months as increasing fissures between Russia and the West will impact other conflicts and exacerbate long-standing geopolitical tensions. Now, this actually brings me to several comments here that I want to discuss with you guys. I'll probably save these later on in the video, but let's just stick to my notes here. And I've got the biggest risks here. Number 1, the financial and the inflation impact as a result of sanctions and as a result of the impacts to global trade, global commerce. We all know what this means, and if you don't, well, let me explain. So, the geopolitical shifts and the geopolitical volatility that is being experienced has an impact on our global economy. And ultimately what that means is we end up seeing higher prices on pretty much everything we buy, no matter what it is, no matter where it is, because our economies are all intertwined and interconnected. And as a country, we don't produce enough on our own and we import way too much. So our costs are dependent upon others' prices. And although we may not do business, engage in commerce and trade and import from Russia directly, we do somehow, some way indirectly. Or we then have to get resources and commodities and other raw materials from other sources that may not have similar costs as some of these countries that we are no longer doing business with. So what that means is that the consumer, you and I, we see higher prices left and right. And usually it doesn't necessarily automatically mean an increase in pay. So it's going to cause a financial impact with inflation, especially as we're heading towards this looming recession for 2023. So as far as the national security threat, the potential security threat, the financial and inflationary component due to these geopolitical volatility and shifts, Russia, Ukraine, we have to be preparing financially. And you guys know what that means. Number two, we need to be preparing our resources physically and mentally for a possible world war. Now, I don't want to spark, panic, fear, any of that stuff that people like to throw around these words in the comments. I'm only sharing with you guys the information, the facts, the truth of what's real. Now, if you choose to want to ignore it and deny it, that's fine. To each their own. Feel free to watch the video, but I don't think it's necessary to try to convince others that they don't need to prepare for what is coming. So next on the list, we have social unrest. And it says that social unrest will be a significant item on the C-suite agenda for 2023, as the problem is multifaceted, affecting organizations and employees in many ways. Some themes and critical points for 2023 include volatility in energy and agricultural markets with fuel unrest. That's petroleum-based fuel, particularly in unstable, fragile economies. Most likely locations include sub-Saharan Africa, Egypt, and Lebanon. Lack of progress on resolving underlying economic or political issues will provoke growing public dissatisfaction and cycles of unrest where the risk of violence grows over time. Most likely locations including Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Ecuador, Peru, Iraq, and for obvious reasons, you guys can pretty much connect the dots there. And polarization at a global level will be reflected in further domestic polarization, inflaming pre-existing triggers for social unrest, and in extremists influencing more localized violence and criminal activity. So honestly, folks, for the people watching in America, in the United States, in North America, in Canada, in Europe, and these Australia, some of these countries that are definitely much further along than Sri Lanka, Peru. This is our biggest problem, really and truly. I'm going to read it to you again. Polarization at a global level will be reflected in further domestic polarization, inflaming pre-existing triggers for social unrest and in extremists, influencing more localized violence and criminal activity. So, folks, in my opinion, this just basically boils down to more of the same. More of the same of what we were seeing in 2019, 2020. Now, coming back, history repeats itself to rear its ugly head, especially with the financial component tacked onto it. And as we move into this next round of U.S. presidential election, as we are getting closer to it. So expect social unrest to inflame pre-existing triggers, extremists influencing more localized violence and criminal activity. So with that being said, we need to be protected. We need to be planning and preparing to be protected, okay? More than just 2A, folks. More than just 2A. Let me pull up this comment here. I want you guys to see this comment because this was sparked from the video I posted yesterday about a recent activity at Walmart. I want you guys to pay attention. Homeless man followed me from Walmart to my car last summer in my town. Is homeless people bust here when it's election time and it takes the sheriff some time to get them gone? I'm assuming that's a question. I carry, and all it took was me looking in his eye with a smile as I went for my gun. He got away from me in my car quickly. So, yeah, folks, this personal protection is more than 2A. And in my opinion, I appreciate the engagement. I appreciate the comment, but I will say that is probably the worst comment that I've ever read here recently, because brandishing a weapon for your own protection is actually illegal. Yeah, it's illegal. So at least it is here in my state of Florida. So, if perhaps maybe the person who you thought was approaching you wasn't actually approaching you and saw you brandish your weapon and proceeded to draw theirs, then they would more than likely be justified in protecting themselves, standing their ground, more so than you. So 2A is great, freedom, power to the people. I get it. Protect yourself. Have it, not need it, not have it. But if you don't know the laws, if you don't know the rules, if you don't know justification and just cause, then you're probably going to be in a world of hurt and more than likely going to endanger other people in the process. So I really encourage people to get better educated, and perhaps maybe put themselves in some safer situations to avoid the need to feel like you need to do that. Now, with that being said, USCCA is a great organization. I highly recommend folks check it out. There's a link in the description. And I'm a member for a variety of reasons, but number one, the legal aspect of it, USCCA, you might want to go check that out. If you guys want to know more information about USCCA, please drop a comment, let me know, because it's not necessarily just, protecting you and the lives of the people and your family and your loved ones around you. It's about the legal ramifications after. Big deal, folks. And those will tie into your personal freedom and your finances. And this is more than just physical attacks too. Like I said, the legal protections, and we need to be mentally prepared for what is going to be coming, what's going to be happening. I can say this from a completely different perspective. I can say this from a black man's perspective in a extremely white town. I can say this from a black man's perspective, married to a white female. I can say this from a content creator's perspective, because I see the comments, I see the block comments, and I see the hidden comments that even YouTube is like, I don't even know we can post this one. And I got thick skin, and that you got to have it. But for some people who don't, you got to be ready mentally. You got to be mentally prepared for what's about to happen, especially as we see these expectations of domestic polarization inflaming pre-existing triggers for social unrest, extremists. You guys, you know what I'm talking about, right? Next up, we got climate change. Climate change is going to tie in directly to what we just watched on the opening clip of this video with the Marburg virus. And it says here that experts advise that climate change is contributing to an acceleration in the emergence of infectious diseases, illustrated by the multiple unusual outbreaks of the 21st century, including SARS, Ebola, C-19, and Mpox. And a briefing published in Nature Climate Change estimates that over half of known human pathogenic diseases can be aggravated by climate change. Now, that's not good. Climate change is expected to increase mosquito-borne diseases as temperatures and standing water levels increase. And this situation could potentially cause outbreaks of malaria, dengue fever, and Zika in places where they have been present before, and more frequent outbreaks in areas where they already exist. Best practices for combating these threats include undertaking risk assessments of existing and potential health threats and incorporating forecasts for potential geographic extension of hazards due to climate change and other forces. Well, folks, here we are. Marburg virus, sharing this information directly from Bupe. I really do appreciate her assisting and helping me out with bringing you guys this content, this information, this educational information to help people better prepare. Number one, Marburg virus is a hemorrhagic fever caused by the African fruit bat. And the virus has no treatment. And there are therapies that can help, such as balancing a patient's fluids, replacing lost blood, and constantly checking the oxygen status of the patient. The virus was first recognized in 1967 in Germany and Belgrade, where it broke out at a university. The virus is extremely dangerous with death rates of 88%. Anyone is at risk of the virus as it spreads through contact with an infected person. Example, in contact with blood, fluids, sweat of an infected person. So I want to share with you guys some information from just posted just a few days ago. Confirmed its very first outbreak of Marburg virus disease in Equatorial Guinea, and following the deaths of at least 9 people positive on one of these samples of the viral hemorrhagic fever Marburg virus, with support from the World Health Organization, WHO, the virus was positive. Positive test for the virus. So far, 9 deaths and 16 suspected cases with symptoms including fever, fatigue, and blood-stained vomit and diarrhea have been reported. Further investigations are ongoing. Marburg is highly infectious. The World Health Organization doctor from the World Health Organization, the regional director for Africa, stated Marburg is highly infectious. Marburg virus disease is a highly virulent disease that causes hemorrhagic fever with a fatality ratio of up to 88%. And I just wanted to share with you guys this information so that you guys knew exactly what we're up against here. And a hemorrhagic fever. Hemorrhagic basically means bleeding. Hemorrhagic is the medical term for bleeding. It most often refers to excessive bleeding. Hemorrhagic diseases are caused by bleeding or they result in bleeding. So this is not good. And Marburg virus disease is highly virulent disease that causes hemorrhagic fever with a fatality rate and fatality ratio of up to 88%. It is in the same family as the virus that causes Ebola virus disease. An illness caused by Marburg virus begins abruptly with high fever, severe headache, and severe malaise. Many patients develop severe hemorrhagic symptoms within 7 days, and the virus is transmitted to people from fruit bats and spreads among humans through direct contact with the bodily fluids of infected people, surfaces, and materials. So we're going to need more than just masks this time, folks. There are no vaccines or antiviral treatments approved to treat this virus. So it seems like really bad news once you get it. So just, folks, and we can see from the comments here, comments are not very, people have opinions on this. Marburg has been around for a while. I wonder why they let it flourish all these years. Didn't want to waste a crisis. Good question. Well, there goes 2023, 88% kill rate. This will be a challenge. Sheesh. And back in 1982, Boris Johnson's father wrote a fictional novel all about this crisis called the Marburg virus. Then he changed the title and republished it during COVID time under the title The Virus. All just coincidence, of course, and not in any way distasteful to exploit a pandemic to sell your book. Folks, people out here trying to make money. Is this going to be an international issue like C-19? Maybe. And I thought World War III was the biggest threat in 23. How silly of me. Pfizer, here we come. Stockholders, yeah. I'm sure, look, I can't say what's going on behind the scenes, but I'm sure these guys know and they're preparing just as we should be doing the same. Lockdown 2.0, get your vaccine arms ready, folks. So we can already see how people are feeling about this threat. And next up on the list, folks, business travel. Now, this may not necessarily immediately hit folks as a national security, a personal security threat to prepare for, but we don't need to only worry about what we know and what we think about first and foremost. These threats exist all around us, okay? And it says that the report also highlights that most organizations, 86%, are keeping travel risk management budgets the same or increasing, so travel will likely continue to grow and return to pre-pandemic levels. And with that being said, this will be more than just travel insurance for lost luggage, okay? I want you guys to check out what this Ukrainian engineer has designed, which is an airplane. Thanks, Squirrel Tribe, for sending me this link. I really do appreciate it. Which is an airplane with a detachable cabin. And go check out Squirrel Tribe because she's putting out a lot of great content, a lot of great information, helping people open their eyes and become more aware and prepared about what's going on around us, specifically with the foods we eat in the grocery stores and our health. So in the event of an emergency, the cabin breaks off, deploys parachutes, and floats passengers safely to the sea or ground. This is, considering, how relatively, safe air travel is, this is a little bit alarming to me that this has been designed. Now, granted, it's great that people are working on ways of protecting people and saving lives, but I feel like this is like a little bit of a hidden message, some writing on the wall, and that we really need to be paying attention to. You guys probably were aware, you saw the United flight, I believe it was a United flight that took a nosedive that had people panicking, fearing for their lives. So, business travel, if they're requesting people to come back into the office, if the economy's open back up, if borders are open back up, then we have to, despite having all the advancements in AI and technology and Zoom and virtual meetings, we are going to get back into the phase of global and worldwide travel. Business travel is going to be on the rise. Therefore, business travel threats and security concerns, besides just these planes, we got the airports, we got, EMP strikes, we got JFK losing power. All sorts of things could potentially happen. We need to be planning and protecting ourselves in case shit hits the fan. SHTF. Now, folks, with that being said, I want to get to these comments. We are now living in the Wild West again. Criminals have no reason to not violate the law because of our new get out of jail free policy. Thank goodness I live in Tennessee, where men are still men and everyone has a gun. Going to jail doesn't scare criminals nowadays, but dying does. Sad, but that is where we are now. I can't say what motivates these people to do what they do or potentially fear the consequences. They're probably just not good human beings. I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of people are capable, but a lot of people are just good people. So they don't do bad things to other people. And as we progress more towards a constitutional carry country, maybe that will entice people to think twice before they act stupid. Or it will, hopefully we can move towards a much more considerate society that isn't so much trying to destroy everyone else and actually trying to improve our situations rather than just continuously make them worse. Like if you agree. Now, I shop Walmart at times when it's dark out, and during the past year, I've been very weary of the possibility of someone sneaking up behind me and robbing me. The fact is, I carry no cash, I live paycheck to paycheck, and you are spot on. People are getting desperate and have little patience. This will only get worse. When people get desperate, good people will do bad things. I think we would be naive to be oblivious to the fact that things are not necessarily great for everybody. And as desperation increases, the sound judgment will decrease. But I don't want to put a blanket statement and say good people will do bad things. But I also don't want to put it past good people to do bad things, or people in general. So, there needs to be a constant state of alertness and reasonable suspicion, but I also don't think we need to be running around, side-eyeing everybody like, who's going to try to get me, I don't think that's the way to live. But perhaps maybe if we work towards improving the situation, good people wouldn't have to do bad things. Does that make sense? There have been other similar accounts of people being robbed of their groceries and they weren't at Walmart. That is 100% true, 100% accurate. I was only sharing with you an email that was shared with me about a particular story, but you're absolutely right. These things can happen anywhere and everywhere. And I think the best thing for us to do is to be aware and be cognizant of it and be planning and preparing. One, don't put yourself in a situation where you're potentially vulnerable and at risk. And two, if you're going to take a road trip, you're going to check the car, you're going to check the oil, you're going to check the tires, you're going to have a spare. Why? Just in case something happens, just in case there's an accident, you're going to have some roadside safety kit, a flare, a safety vest, a flashlight, whatever it is that you're doing. You're going out in the woods, you're going camping, you're going hiking, you're doing a little bit of national parks, you're going to go, what are you going to do? You're going to get some bear spray. Why? Just in case, just in case. So much like we would prepare for pretty much anything else and ensure ourselves against accidents and do the best that we can to prevent problems from happening and putting ourselves in the best position possible to survive any possible problem or accident or mishap or attack or whatever it may be. I think that that applies to just day-to-day activities and commuting, traveling, shopping, living life. Like I said, locks keep honest people honest, but that's the best that you're going to do. And I would much rather put myself and my family in a position of having something to protect us and not need it than needing something to protect us and not have it. But at the same time, training, education, muscle memory, understanding and operating within the legal limits of the law is going to be even more so important than having potentially the tools, because most tools, if anybody, wants to attest to this, are very useless if not operated correctly and people don't understand the effective ways of using them properly, if that makes sense. So again, y'all may want to go check out USCCA, because not only do they have a ton of helpful information on protecting us legally, they have a ton of information on helping us train and becoming more knowledgeable, educated, and proficient at saving our lives. Until next time, folks, you guys take care, be safe. I'll see you real soon. Peace.